everything started normally. Four young men were traveling to Saudi Arabia for vacation. They had no idea about the danger that existed there. Their plan was simple: to spend the 2 wonderful days enjoying themselves and having fun. But dear viewer, what wonderful time could they enjoy? In the end, all of them were wiped out and destroyed. The only survivor was the man who is telling us the story. The storyteller was rescued with a great difficulty while suffering from every serious injury. So the important question is, what happened there? What caused such a terrible disaster? Was there a jinn in that place attacking people? Or were there armed men who destroyed this innocent young man? My dear viewer, what if I told you that something even worse than that happened? This is truly a very interesting story. I know that many of you love the stories that take place in the desert. So get ready. After you finish listening of this story, write in the comment section how it made you feel. As for me, I can tell you that I felt afraid. I also learned something from it. When you finish this story, share your feeling as well, because that's very important. I would even say that this story deserves to be made into movies. It's exactly the kind of story that many of you enjoy, especially because it takes place in the desert. I've noticed that some people in the comments on my videos asking me to tell me certain stories. Since these stories about the desert are related events, I would like you support to make it different from others. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thank you very much. Let's begin our story. The man telling this story never mentioned his name. However, he said, "My father told me this story and it is truly unusual one." He said, "I'm from the city of Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. We are a large and loving family that always stay close to one another. We have a tradition of gathering together every Friday. When I say gathering, I mean our entire family, my uncles, my aunts, their children, and all of us cousins. We would all meet in one place and spend the time together. No matter how busy someone was, during the week, Friday was different. Nobody was allowed to be too busy for the family gathering. Usually the family would meet afternoon." He continued, "One day I asked my mother, why do we gather after the Asr prayer? Now almost 3 p.m. like that. Why don't we meet at noon like we used to?" My mother replied, "Your father is the reason. His father had a special habit, and because of that habit, the family gathering was moved to afternoon." He explained in the past, "We used to meet at noon and stay together until Asr time. After that, everyone would go home in the evening. But when my father started following this habit, we would gather at noon and leave Asr. Asr means 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. because he always had somewhere to go after that. Later, when my father retired from the work, the gathering time changed completely. We started meeting after Asr 3 p.m. and staying together until late afternoon." The storyteller then explained the reason behind his father's habit. "My father was an imam at Mosque. Every Friday afternoon, he would visit sick people in hospitals. Visiting sick people is highly rewarded act in Islam. So my father was very committed to it. That was the reason our family adjusted the gathering time." He continued, "Eventually my father stopped doing this because he became very old. He was over 80 years old. In fact, he stopped the habit when he was around 65. He stopped the habit when he was around 65 because his health began to decline. Eventually, he himself became someone who needed visitors." Then he said, "On the Friday when this story began, something unusual happened. All my uncles and my aunts became busy with different matters. They did not want their children to stay home alone, so they told them, 'Go to your grandfather's house and spend the day together.' As a result, all of us cousins gathered at my grandfather's house. My father's siblings, my children, my mother's siblings, and all of the other young relatives were there. My father was with us as well as he had nothing important to do that day. It was mostly a gathering of young people. There were no older adults around. Everyone was busy using their phones and doing their own things. Then one of my cousins asked my father's question. He said, "Uncle, during all these years when you visited sick people in hospitals, what was the strangest person or the most surprising incident you ever come across?" I was using my phone at that time, but when I heard the question, I lowered it slightly because I wanted to hear what my father would say. My father replied, "Honestly, my son, nothing special happened. Everything was mostly normal." When I saw that my father was not really going to tell a story, I went back to using my phone and continued what I was doing before. Then suddenly my father said, except from one incident. It is an incident that I have never forgotten even to this day. As soon he said that, I put my phone down a little. In fact, everyone sitting there, their phone is down. They all wanted to listen and find out what the story was about. My father continued. This happened about 30 years ago. At that time, I was around 13 years old. I was an imam at mosque, and every Friday afternoon I visited sick people in hospitals. Whenever I arrived at hospital, I would go from room to room. I would pray for the patients and remind them to be patient and remember Allah. Many foreign patients who had no visitors were especially happy to see me because they had nobody else with them. There were also some patients who stayed together in shared rooms. I usually spent more time with them than with the others, sometimes 15 or 20 minutes before moving on. This became my routine for nearly 30 years. He continued. One day, while I was about to leave the hospital, one of the doctors stopped me and spoke to me. He said, 2 days ago, a young man was brought here. We had to perform surgery on him, and one of his legs was amputated. When he woke up after the operation, we tried to talk to him, but for the last 2 days, he refused to speak to anyone. We don't know what is wrong with him. Since you are a good person and you come here often, we would like you to help us. Maybe he will talk to you. My father agreed and said, "Of course, I will try." The doctors then led him to a small room that he had never seen before. It was located inside the hospital. When I opened the door slightly, my father said, I saw a young man standing there staring out of the window. He wasn't to look anywhere else. He looked like someone carrying very heavy and painful story inside him. When I entered, I greeted him. Assalamu alaikum. The young man seemed surprised because the voice was not one of the doctors. He turned around and saw a man with a large beard smiling at him. He looked at me for a moment, then turned away again. He did not return my greeting, and he didn't say a single word. I thought to myself, alright, the situation is not going to be easy. So I began trying to talk to him. I asked him, how are you? What is troubling you? Are you feeling better? But it was as if he did not even know whether I was in the room or not. My father continued. Since nothing else was working, I began reciting verses from the Quran. I reminded him of the sayings of the Prophet. I told him that this world is full of trials and that many people face hardships even greater than his. I gave him general advice and encouragement. But honestly, I wasn't even sure he was listening. He looked like someone who could not hear a word I was saying. That day, I made a decision I would not give up until this young man spoke. Because of that, my father started visiting the hospital more often than before. Previously, I only come once a week, but after meeting him, I began visiting 3 or 4 times a week. Sometimes I would stay away from only a couple of days before returning again. I kept doing this several weeks. Then something happened. My own life became busy, and for about a week, I could not visit the hospital at all. After all my responsibilities were finished, I finally returned to the hospital once again. Then when I entered hospital, the doctor called me. He said, "Do you remember that son who is not spoken?" "Yes." "He's searching you." He said, "Where is that man? Where you go? Maybe he will talk to you. Please enter." Then he said, I become very happy and ran to his room. When I entered the room, he greets me. Then he said, "I wanna ask you a question." Then after we talk a while, he said, "Uncle, I wanna ask you a question." Then my father said, "What a question? I will answer you. Tell me only." He said, "I see very bad dreams. What that dreams were from, where they come from?" Then my father said, "My son, there is big difference between them. A normal dream is a dream that comes from Allah. It's usually clear, meaningful, and often pleasant. You can remember it easily. But the other type, the confusing dream, comes from Shaitan. It's disturbing, confusing, and has no clear meaning. There is great difference between two." Then I asked him, "But my son, why are you asking about that?" The young man replied, "Don't worry, uncle, nothing is wrong. But if I start talking, my story is very long." I smiled and said, "That's fine. Even if it takes all night, I will stay here with you. Just tell me whatever is in your heart." He nodded and said, "Alright." Then he asked me, "Uncle, what is life like in your city?" I looked at him and surprised. He continued, "Honestly, I hate this place. Nobody wants to talk to anyone. Families don't seem to care about each other. People don't even want you to get to know each other. People don't even want you to get to know one another." He paused for a moment and then said, "Where I come from, things are different. The happiness, the friendship, the way people know each other, and the way they share both good times and hardships, you would be amazing." He then explained that he come from a small place called Hajar, a village not far from Riyadh. Then he finally began telling his story. "I grew up in that small village. Everyone knew everyone else. The people there lived like one big family. When someone was happy, everybody shared that happiness. When someone faced a problem, everyone came together to help it. Nobody felt alone. That was the life I knew." And with these words, he began with a long story that would eventually explain how he lost his leg and why he had remained silent for many days. The town where I lived was a wonderful place. Everyone knew each other. I lived with my mother and father, and my life was full of happiness. He said, "As a normal young man, I would go out, play with my friends, and come home happy. I would sit and talk with my mother and father. Allah had blessed me with everything I need in my life filled completely." Then his voice became sad, but one day everything changed. I come home and I hear people saying, "Your father has died." When I entered the house, I saw people crying everywhere. Everyone was heartbroken. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. Then I realized that my father had truly passed away. He continued it. "It was one of the hardest moments of my life. Anyone who loses their father knows how painful that. I couldn't handle it. Everywhere around me, there was crying and sadness." His aunts decided to take him away from the house for a while, then wanted to keep me away from all. So they took me to stay at their home. But only 2 days later, another tragedy struck. They told me that my mother had also died. The imam interrupted and asked how that had happened. The young man replied, "My mother's death was not caused by illness. She loved my father deeply. When she heard that her husband had died, she could not bear the shock. The grief overwhelmed her, and she passed away as well. The 2 people I loved most in this world were taken from me almost at that time," he continued. "After that, whenever I passed by our house, or even saw it from a distance, memories would come floating back. I would start crying and screaming from the pain." His uncles and aunts became worried about it. They decided that I should leave that area completely. So they moved me to the town Hajar, where some of maternal relatives lived. There, he stayed with his aunts and other family members. They hoped that changing my environment would help me stronger and recover from my grief. And in some ways, it worked. My relatives treated me very well. They gave me food, clothes, and everything I needed. However, another problem appeared. A monster called boredom cut me. He smiled sadly. There is almost nothing worse than being lonely. Every day, he watched his relatives leaving from the work and returning home in the evening. Meanwhile, I sat alone in the house. Most of the day, I had nothing to do and I became very bored. Eventually, his relatives decided to enroll him in school. I agreed. In fact, I also felt that I needed something to occupy my time. After joining the school, things began to improve. During my first days there, I met a boy named Bender. Bender was kind and friendly. We became close friends very quickly. Most of the time we spent with him. A few days later, Bender introduced him to another friend named Sultan. Soon the three of us became inseparable. We went everywhere together and spent our days together. The young boy smiled as he remembered these days. Alhamdulillah, I was happy again, he said. I had finally escaped the loneliness. I had friends, place to go, things to do. Alhamdulillah, thanks God, life was getting better. He said the three of us were always together. There was hardly anything we didn't do. Our township was small and we explored almost every part of it. We went here and there, looking for ways to have fun. Eventually, all three of them became bored with their daily routine. Sultan especially wanted to change our routine. He wanted us to try new things that we had never done before. Then the young man explained that he became sick for a week and missed school. When I recovered and returned to school, I saw Bender and my friend Sultan walking with another man. He was surprising. The man looked older than us. His body was small, but you could easily tell that he was older. The man's name was Ravi. Ravi was the type of person who acted without thinking. He was reckless and don't seem to care much about responsibility. The moment I saw him, I understood what kind of person he was. And honestly, I didn't like him. But Bender and Sultan felt differently. They liked him immediately. In fact, they became very close to him. Soon the group became 4 friends instead of 3. However, things started changing. Bender and Sultan gradually lost interest in school and studying. The young man, the one who told us this story, however, was very serious about his education. I was the type of student who never missed school. Whenever his friends tried to skip classes, he would stop them. I would tell them, "Come on, this is not alright, don't skip school." But they would laugh and reply, "Relax, we are young, stop acting so serious." Ravi especially liked saying things like that. You are young, he would say, "Enjoy your life. Allah provides everyone sustenance, so don't stress yourself so much." Bender and Sultan loved hearing these words. They admired Ribah more and more, because he was older than us and seemed wiser in their eyes. The young man sighed. Whenever they planned something foolish, I was always the one reminding them to be responsible. Eventually, his friends gave him a nickname. They started calling me the animal of fun because I always warned them about things. Then one day something happened. It was after Thursday, Friday weekend. The young man arrived and saw Bender and Sultan standing beside a vehicle. Their bags were packed. They looked at us if they were about to travel somewhere. Surprised, he asked, "Where are you going?" They replied, "We are heading into the desert. We are going camping for 2 days, then we will come back." He looked at them and said, "Am I not your friend? Why you don't tell me?" Bender laughed and answered, "Come on, Abdulsa. We know how you are. If we invited you, you would probably start talking about school and responsibility again. So we figure out we would just let you stay focused on your studies while we had our adventure. Abdulrazak thought about it for a moment. Then he asked, "What about school?" They replied, "Nobody will notice us. We gone on the first day. On the second day we will come with up some excuses. By the third day we will come back as if nothing happened." He stood there thinking. Finally he said, "Well, if that's the plan, then I come in with you." Bandar and Sultan stared at him in disbelief. "What, you are coming? You the one who is always talking about school?" Abdulrazak smiled. "School will still be there when we come back. Let's go. Then hurry up and get your things ready." They meet Rabih, who owned the vehicle. Rabih looked surprised when he saw Abdulrazak. "Where are you going?" he asked. "I'm coming with you," he said. Rabih raised his eyebrows. "Really? You are joining us?" He said, "Yes." Rabih smiled. "All right, then get it in." The four young men climbed into the vehicle and began their journey. As they drove farther and farther away, the town slowly disappeared behind. The town slowly disappeared behind them. Ahead of them stretched the vast desert. None of them knew that this trip would change their lives forever, and this, dear listener, was where your problems really began. Looking back now, deciding to go camping was the biggest mistake we ever made. As they drove deeper into the desert, Rabih suddenly said to Bandar, "Take the rifle out from the back of the vehicle and get it ready." Then he asked, "Do you know how to shoot it?" Bandar said, "Yes." So Bandar took out the rifle. The plan was to hunt animals in the desert and eat them during the few days they would spend camping there. Rabih was driving the vehicle while Bandar and Sultan sat in the back. They rolled down the windows and leaned out slightly, watching the desert around them. Bandar held the rifle while Sultan helped him. Neither of them had much experience hunting. Rabih shouted, "If you see a rabbit or any small thing, shoot it. Or any small animal, shoot it." "Okay," Bandar replied. They continued driving through the desert. Then suddenly Rabih yelled, "Bandar, shoot it! There is it! There is it! That's rabbit!" Bandar quickly aimed and fired. The shot missed. The rabbit escaped and started running away. Rabih immediately stepped harder on the accelerator. The vehicle sped after the rabbit. The rabbit would run left and Rabih would return left. Then it would run right, and Rabih also ran right after it. The vehicle was moving dangerously and fast. Abdulrazak became frightened. I grabbed Bandar and Sultan by their clothes because I was afraid they may fall out of the window. Chase continued. The disaster struck. While trying to follow the rabbit, Rabih made a sudden sharp turn. He lost control of the vehicle. The car crashed. It rolled over violently across the desert sand. Unfortunately, it rolled onto the side where Bandar and Sultan were sitting. The vehicle crushed them. They died instantly. Abdulrazak paused before continuing. They didn't even have time to feel a pain. They didn't even have a time to feel pain as for him. Because I was seated differently, I was drawn around as the vehicle rolled. My head slammed into something hard, and I lost consciousness. Everything went dark. Hours later, he felt wake up. He finally wake up. The accident happened around 1:30 p.m. in afternoon. I didn't wake up until about 5 o'clock in the evening. The sun was already beginning to set. At first, he thought he was dreaming. I could hear voices, but they sounded very far away. His vision was blurry. The sunlight was shining into my eyes, and I couldn't see properly. Then little by little, his senses returned. When I finally became fully aware, I saw a overturned vehicle lying in the sand. Then he realized something. The voice he had thought was far away was actually nearby. It was Rabih. Rabih had survived. He was lying same distance away, groaning in pain. Abdulrazak could hear him crying out. Thunder, Sultan, don't leave me. Then Rabi' called out again, Abdulsaq, you come with us too? Didn't you? His voice was filled with fear, desperation, as the reality of what had happened began to sink in. Rabi' was speaking in panic, like a terrified man who didn't know what to do. Abdulsaq continued, I slowly became more aware of my surroundings. I looked around and saw the vehicle lying upside down. He tried to get out. I grabbed part of the steering wheel and pulled myself through the window. Then I fell onto the sand outside. He was still dizzy and confused. Nothing felt normal. As he struggled to stand, he heard Rabi shouting, Abdulsaq, you are alive. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Come, help me. I can't feel my legs. Something is wrong. Abdulsaq walked toward the vehicle. He saw Rabi trapped under the part of the vehicle. He was looking at me and begging for help. Rabi kept saying, lift this off me. I can't feel my legs. The vehicle had crushed his legs and he had completely lost feeling in them. But before helping him, Abdulsaq wanted to check on his two best friends. He walked toward the Thunder and Sultan. Then he saw the terrible truth. The vehicle had landed directly on them. They had died in a horrifying way. These were the two friends he loved most. They had eaten together, traveled together, spent almost every day together. And now, by Allah's decree, they had died together in the same place. When I saw them, I couldn't believe it. The grief hit him like a wave. Then he looked back at Rabi'. His anger grew. I looked at that miserable man, the one whose recklessness had caused the death of my two close friends. Rabi' pleaded again. Abdulsaq, help me. My condition is bad. Abdulsaq replied, no, I'll not help you. Then he continued, you are the reason my friend had died. If you had never entered our life, none of this would have happened. Look what have you done to us. With that, Abdulsaq running around and walked away. At that moment, I wanted to return to the town. But after walking for a while, he realized something. Everywhere around him was deserty. Nothing but deserty. No people, no roads, no signs, nothing. I kept walking saying Bismillah. But I had no idea where I was going. Soon, he understood a frightening reality. The only person who knew the area was Rabi'. Without him, may never find his way back, so he had no choice. He turned around and went back, standing over Rabi'. He said, quickly tell me which direction the town is. Rabi' replied, take me with you first, then I will tell you everything. We have to stay together. I have no other choice, and I am not telling you anything unless you help me. Abdulsaq realized he was trapped, so he began trying to free Rabi'. After a lot of effort, he managed to pull him out from under the vehicle. But Rabi' could not stand. His legs were useless. Abdulsaq looked around and found a wooden plank that had broken off the vehicle. He tied a rope to it and placed Rabi' on top. Then he began dragging him across the desert. At first, I wanted to rescue Bandar and Sultan as well. He tried to lift the vehicle off them, but it was impossible. The vehicle was far too heavy. After several attempts, he finally accepted the truth. There was nothing he could do. I told myself, Allah has already taken their souls. Right now, the only thing I can do is to save my own life. So he felt them behind and continued dragging Rabi'. The sun was setting. I kept walking and walking without stopping. Eventually, night arrived. But even then he continued. All the 12 o'clock at the night, he began hearing sounds in a distance. They were the cries of hyenas roaming the desert. Fortunately, before left the crash said Rabi' had given important piece of advice. He had said, before we go in, take the rifle with us. We don't know what we may face out of here. We don't know what we may face out here. Rabi' was experienced. He understood the danger of the desert. So they took the rifle. Rajesh cried it while lying on the wooden plank, and Abdulrazak continued dragging him through the darkness of the desert. Ahead of them, unknown danger were waiting. When they heard the sounds of the hyenas and other animals in the desert, they decided to stop for the night. Eventually, they reached a small water tank that people in the area used to store water. Abdulrazak said, I climbed onto the top of the container to sleep while Rabi stayed on the ground below. He kept the rifle beside him. Rabi seemed embarrassed to ask for more help. He didn't even dare say, carry me up there too, even through the wild animals could have reached him on the ground. Abdulrazak was exhausted and quickly tired to sleep. That night Rabi began talking. He told me that he was full of regrets. Rabi kept asking himself, what happened? How my life ended up like this? He spoke about his mother. He worried about what would happen to her life if he died. His regret was overwhelming. Then he said, Abdulrazak, I'm not saying this just because of what has happened, but if Allah saves my life today, I promise I will become a responsible person. I take care of my family and leave behind all the useless things. Abdulrazak listened silently, but he was still angry. After all, Rabi's recklessness had cost the lives of two closest friends. Then Abdulrazak noticed something strange. Rabi suddenly started laughing. He confused, he asked, why are you laughing? Rabi replied, honestly, I don't think I'm going to survive this. I feel like I'm going to die here. Hearing these words saddened Abdulrazak. Soon they both fell asleep. The next day, around the time of Asr in the afternoon, they wake up again. Abdulrazak continued dragging Rabi across the desert. Hour after hour passed. He became more and more exhausted. They had already been suffering in the desert for nearly 2 days. Then something shocking happened. I suddenly wake up to the sound of gunshots. At first, Abdulrazak thought wild animal had attacked them. Then he felt instant pain. He looked down and saw blood pouring from his leg. The person who had fired the shot was none other than Rabi. I was terrified, he said. He turned and looked at him. Rabi's mouth was hanging open. He looked as if his soul was leaving his body. The rifle was still beside him. Abdulrazak quickly realized what had happened. Rabi had not meant to shoot him. As Rabi was dying, his finger had accidentally pulled the trigger. By pure chance, the bolt struck Abdulrazak's leg. I couldn't believe it. A few minutes later, Rabi died. Now, all three of his companions were gone. Bandar died, Sultan died, Rabi died, and Abdulrazak himself was wounded by a gunshot. He was completely alone, so I left Rabi where he died and continued walking by myself. He has no idea where he was going, no idea if he would survive. As he wandered through the desert, he began drifting in and out of consciousness. Whenever he collapsed, he started seeing strange dreams and visions. One of them stayed in his memory. I saw an unfinished house. The house had a closed door. From inside, he could hear the voices of his mother and father. I was happy. He rushed toward the door and tried to open it. He knocked again and again, but the door would not open. Then suddenly he woke up. A while later, he lost consciousness again. This time, he found himself standing in the desert once more. But now the door of the unfinished house was open. I felt overjoyed, and he began moving toward the open door away, hoping to finally see his parents again. I could still hear the voices of my mother and father. Abdulrazak continued. I called out them. I said, Father, talk to me please. Nobody answered. Even though he could hear their voices, they never responded. I tried to enter the house, but something strange happened. No matter how fast I ran, I could never reach the door. The door always seemed far away. The door always seemed far away. It felt as if the house was moving farther for me. I didn't know what to do. Still, he kept trying. I continued moving toward it, believing that I was about to be reunited with my mother and father. Then suddenly everything disappeared. He woke up. When I opened my eyes, I found myself in this hospital. He looking down and saw something devastating. My leg was gone. The doctor had amputated it. When they tried to speak with him, he could not respond. I couldn't talk to anyone because all I could think about was my mother and father. I truly believed I was to see them again. But that reunion never happened. Unfortunately, I never saw them. The Imam sat there in amazement. He could hardly believe everything the young man had gone through. The losses of his parents, the losses of his friends, the terrible accident, the days spent suffering alone in the desert. Then Abdulrazak said something that surprised him even more. He said, "There is only one person I am worried about now." The Imam asked who. Abdulrazak replied, Rabi's mother. The Imam was surprised. After everything that had happened, he expected Abdulrazak to be angry at Rabi forever. But Abdulrazak continued. Rabi talked about his mother all night. She's an innocent woman. She never harmed anyone. Then he added, I'm afraid she may suffer from hunger and hardship after losing her son. I want someone to look for her and stand beside her. The Imam was deeply moved by these words. He was amazed that 18 years old, after experiencing so much pain himself, was still thinking about helping someone else. The Imam then asked him, "But my son, you have lost a leg. Your own future is uncertain. How can you think about taking responsibility for someone else's mother?" Abdulrazak answered calmly, "Isn't Allah there? We are not the ones who provide assistance. Allah is the one who provides for everyone. I place my trust in Allah." Then Imam was stunned by the young man's faith, patience, and compassion. Even after losing so much, Abdulrazak's heart remained full of mercy and trust in Allah.